Hello, welcome back to Aether. This is Satomi and Paul from sakasa.ca. So, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Okay, that's good. Okay. So, hope everybody's doing good too. And this is Scott is here. Thank you very much for joining again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, this week, anxious, being about anxious, right? And everybody is being there many times, here and there, and some lightly or heavily, right? So many, so many reasons to be anxious,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So everybody can relate, and then some can relate really, really deeply, and some, oh yeah, I've been there, kind of thing. And right, everybody has a different degree, but everybody, I'm pretty sure, had this anxious feeling, right, in their life
At some point, yeah. Something like that's a little bit experience with myself. Yeah. So, as always, questions and comments are welcome. So please join in the conversation here, you guys. We'd love to hear from you. This is kind of the question, right?
Okay.
Are we always worried about our world just coming crashing down around us, right? Something. Are we anticipating something disastrous? It could happen any minute. I lived in that world for so long, right? And it's bad it's bad just in life, and it's bad enough in life in general to have to deal with that kind of stuff. But lately, it's been especially an issue. There's a lot going on in the world. So many different things, from people being pushed around different ways, and COVID, and so many other world events going on. There's a lot to worry about. The part that we would, like to see be toned down would be like the things that are causing people to not listen to each other, right? If we're afraid that our neighbor, right, in the biblical sense, our neighbor, like that could be our brother, that could be our another family member, that could be the actual, next door neighbor, that could be a friend, that could be somebody you meet on the street, whatever. Our neighbor, if we look at that person as a threat to us, right? That's what we've been getting told in a lot of different ways. And that's unfortunate, because what that leads to is us being divided. Like, families have been torn apart. People are ending up being isolated, and always worried about what the other guy's thinking, left or right on the spectrum, right, on the political spectrum. Do you believe this angle or that explanation, right? And if you don't believe the same thing that I believe, you don't do things the same way I believe, you don't do things in every way that's supposedly safe, then you could be a threat, right? At any minute, you could do something that could put me and everybody in danger. Who knows what kind of crazy person could be lurking, right? So that stuff, it would be great if that would be something that we would not pay attention to, and go on just living and being people, and engaging with our family, our friends, our neighbors, our communities, as humans, as people, as we always have been. Humanity has been through a lot. And I'm not convinced that this is any worse than other crises that we've lived through. So let's just be extra understanding, and listen to the other side, and be open to other people, and not necessarily demonize them, or let other people tell us that other people are a threat. That's just my appeal, because that stuff is so strongly linked to anxiety as well. And if we're in an anxious state, if we believe that people are a threat to us around us, how can we feel secure? How can we feel like this is, like, we can let, that's just going to make us anxious. It's just going to make us afraid. And if we're afraid, we can be manipulated one way or another by somebody. So that's something that would be great. It would be great if we could move past. So, all that being said, just contributing things that are going on in the world, and just in our lives in general. They're complicated enough already, right? So the first step
Mm-hmm.
in moving past this
Mm-hmm.
is being aware, right? When are we anxious? I mean, if you're watching this program, you're probably aware that you've got some kind of thing going on with anxiety. But is it are we aware of when we shift into that mode, anxious mode versus a relaxed mode, right? Feeling safe and happy and all that kind of stuff. Are we aware of when we shift back and forth? I can tell you I wasn't. So that can be a challenge. In my particular case, it was a PTSD thing, so that's why I wasn't aware. I would just sort of move into it and not, it's just totally subconscious, right? So, and you help me with that. You help me gain that awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not PTSD or something, that you might be able to be more adept at being aware of when you go into that mode or not, right? So having that awareness is a huge help,
Okay.
right?
Okay. So, so how having awareness is huge help. I'm just trying to follow. I think I know what you're saying, but it's kind of
How is it a
not.
help? Well,
It's not
if we're not aware
clear.
that we are anxious at this moment,
Mm-hmm.
then we're not we don't engage activities necessarily that will help us get out of that, help us come back into calm, right? If we think that we're just being normal when really
Mm-hmm.
we're anxious, and we don't need to be, then we won't necessarily do something about it.
Okay. So if like let's say people are not aware, they're not aware at all, and then they don't think they're anxious. Is that
Mhm.
what you mean? And then they don't see any problem
With themselves,
with
with their
themselves.
perspective.
So,
I mean, that's what happened with me, right? I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that I was being anxious necessarily,
mhm.
and I wasn't. So we would have a conversation, and I would switch into that other guy.
So like anxious, like if they already know that they're anxious, they are aware. Is
Yes,
that what you?
that's what I'm saying.
So first step,
This moment, they're aware of this moment that is
they're
happening.
already aware that they have anxious feelings. So step one is covered. Is that what you mean?
So what I'm saying is, people are aware usually if they're going to watch the show,
Mm-hmm.
then they're aware that they have anxiety in general.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what we're talking about here in this particular part. The first step is to know when it happens, when it starts,
Okay.
when you're going into that anxious state. Whereas before you're relaxed and no worries, now you're on, oh no, right?
Okay. So just
Be aware of the transition.
pick you as an example. So
Mhm.
you were aware you have anxious feelings, but you didn't know this the
I
part.
was aware that I had anxiety as a problem in general.
Okay.
I was not aware of when I would switch back and forth between being somewhat a little bit anxious and really anxious. Right. So
Okay.
that's, I don't know if I ever was not anxious
Okay.
in a certain part of my life before, but it would go definitely between different degrees.
Okay. So some people might be anxious all the time, but there's more anxious and less anxious, or some people have not anxious, not having anxious feeling, not those periods of time, and having anxious feelings
Yeah.
those periods of
Sometimes
time.
some people are relaxed, and then sometimes anxious. Some people tend to be anxious all the time, but it goes different levels. Yes.
Okay, so this you this first step you're talking about is you have general awareness that you have anxiety, but when it sneaks into you.
Yes, it's because it can be so sneaky. That's the
Okay.
thing that people aren't necessarily aware of.
That part I wasn't clear what you're talking about,
Yeah.
so I need clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Um, so, so fear means that there's an outside locus of control. That means that so there's an inner locus of control or outer locus, and what in other words, what is driving you, right?
Fear means your anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have an inner locus of control, that means you're the one who's in charge, right? You're the one who's making decisions, and you control how you behave. That's an inner locus of control. When you have an outer locus of control, outside forces, you're allowing them to control you. So when you say, like we talked about last week, that certain person, whoever that might be, like oh, that person is making me so mad. That statement is admitting to an outside locus of control. That person has control over me and is making me behave the way I'm behaving. That's disempowering. And the same thing happens with fear, with anxiety. So if you're saying, oh, it's because this is going on in the world, like I watch a news program and there's something going on, now I'm really afraid, right? That's an outside locus of control. You're giving your control over who you are and what your choices you make and what is me today. I'd be giving that over to the news person, right? And that is disempowering because I don't have control; they do. That's a choice. For anybody who isn't reacting out of trauma, it's a choice. So I was trying to draw that distinction earlier. I don't think I did a perfect job. But people who are recovering from trauma, like PTSD, for example, it's not really a conscious choice that you make when you switch into that anxious mindset. Something triggers you and it happens.
It's not. I don't think it's just PTSD. It's
trauma.
Yeah, but so you can say trauma, but you don't have to say trauma. But people going into anxious state, it's not. It's just automatically they go in there. It's not.
It can be just a strong habit, also.
Yeah. So it's not like a conscious. Oh, I'm gonna be anxious. That sounds like that's what you mean by conscious choice. No, nobody choose consciously. I want to be anxious, and in the subconscious level, that's what they're choosing, but not. That's not what they think.
They don't think it through. But what they're saying is, oh, if you're making the choice of like, oh, that what I saw in the news. Oh my God, I've lost. I'm going to. You decide to give your control to the other person, unless it's like, at a subconscious level. Sometimes it's conscious, so it can be subconscious, which case it's a little bit different story, and you need a subconscious shift in order to address that. But other times it's also just habit, and you can choose, become aware and choose.
Habit is also subconscious program. That's why it's a habit. It's just automatic.
To varying, like there's just varying degrees, right? So if it's a super strong habit that you've never done it a different way, and it's been your entire life, and that's all you know, that's going to be very subconscious, right? If it's less so, then you can start to work with it.
Yeah, you can still work with it, but it's still in the subconscious mind because if it's
always
going to
involve. It's always going to involve the subconscious mind.
So
sure.
I don't see the line you draw in. It's all I would say if it's a habit, and then you're not like consciously, okay, I'm gonna be anxious right now.
Well, what I'm saying is like when I was healing, right? So when we did subconscious shift work, I let go of old trauma. that made it so that I was able to heal the PTSD
Mm-hmm.
that way. I still needed to practice
Mm-hmm.
because I still could have just gone with the same old habit
Mm-hmm.
of allowing myself to go into an anxious state.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was working, for example, just working on a task,
Mm-hmm.
I would go into, in my old habit,
Mm-hmm.
I would just automatically go into an anxious state and stay there. And then
Mm-hmm.
something might come along in my day to make me go more so, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
But
habit.
yeah,
That's
but
not.
changing habit is subconscious change too.
Yeah, they go together.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it's like a complete disconnect or like that it's black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that in one case you need a subconscious shift
Mm-hmm.
through a different technique.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it helps you get there much faster, like
Mm-hmm.
using Psych K, like what we use.
Yeah.
Habit changes always are accompany subconscious work as well,
Mm-hmm.
and you can
Yeah.
make subconscious shifts
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Yeah, but if habit change is really hard, then there's a bigger, stronger subconscious program
Yes,
setting.
yes.
That's
Why
why
you want
you
to
want
use Psych
to-
K or
yeah,
something like that, right?
But habit change is subconscious.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about in this
Yeah.
show. That's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we can offer today to
Yeah.
our audience is
Mm-hmm.
because we can't walk them through Psych K.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the show here. We can, but we can talk about all of the habit change stuff that allows for shifting out of that anxious habit
Mm-hmm.
and into a more balanced and a empowering habit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to focus on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Scott has the comment, trying to find the proper tools to deal with feeling anxious can cause anxiety too. So it's like I'm trying to get better and to feel less anxious and to feel calm and relaxed. And what should I use to deal with this? And then not finding the right one, or you try this and it's still anxious, or not even finding it, and there's so many options and I don't know which one to use, which one works for me, and yeah, you get anxious that way too. So it's anxiety can sneak in so many different way and so many different angle. It's just it can you can get into that loop, like just going around and not able to get out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes excuses. Your anxiety, it finds opportunities, excuses any way it can. And that's one of the most difficult parts about it is it can take take a period of time to work through each one of those different angles that your anxiety sneaks in. There are different levels to anxiety. Like I was saying, like I could when I was first starting to work on this, I work on the most problematic expression of my anxiety, right? And I get through that, then there's a more subtle one underneath that. And I get through that, and there's an even more subtle one underneath that. There's different levels, right? So that's what I was saying is like I can be in a workspace and I'm just, as a habit, anxious about my work, but I'm not freaking out, right? So those are different levels. So all of those come into the picture. Click on, yeah. So another thing to keep in mind is that nothing we're anxious about is real. Ever. Right? Anxiety, by definition, is being afraid of something that may happen in the future. So what does that mean? That means it's not happening right now. Now is the only time that exists. This ever, right? No, there's never a time that's not now, right? So that means what you're anxious about is never real. And that's why it's such such a great thing to let go of, because if you're spending energy on something that isn't real, that's by definition a waste of time and energy, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. It can help you come down off of that place from being always anxious. It's just knowing that it's never real. I mean, let's back up there for a second. There is a place for fear in our lives, right? Fear is absolutely essential for us to survive. It's a survival mechanism. But being afraid about in the moment that that something is bad is playing out right now. Like you're walking through a crosswalk and there's a speeding car that all of a sudden shows up and is coming towards you. You need to get out of the way, and you're going to be afraid, and it's for good reason. But that's because of something that's real, because it's happening right now. Anxiety, by definition, is the unhealthy side of it, the unreal part that's concerned about the future. Maybe you're always worried about cars after that experience, right? And you won't walk anywhere because you're always afraid that a car is going to show up when you're walking through the middle of the park, right? It's not real. So that's the difference between them. So one of the things you want to do is to use self-discipline with this, right? And so much of what we do is all about self-discipline. It's having that, first of all, the awareness. That's the first step, right? So if you're aware of the transition of that you slipped into an anxious state.
Be aware if you haven't been aware. How can you be aware? Be aware. It's easy to say be aware, but was that easy? You gotta be aware. Okay, I'll be aware.
How about if I put that question back to you, because I was asking you that question when you were saying trying to help me be aware, right? So I had that problem. I eventually solved it. So there is, and I failed at it many times. The honest truth is that there's so many times that I had the best of intentions of being aware so I could stop doing this, but I failed because I would forget, because I would get into that mild anxious mind, right? That mildly anxious mind. And then something would trigger me and I'd get into a very anxious state of mind, right? So becoming aware, I don't think I really did become aware until I actually found gaps where there was no anxiety. And how did I get to that? Because I was always a little bit tweaked. And once you're in that fearful state of mind, then you get that tunnel vision. You start to obsess over just that thing that you're afraid of, right? You forget, you're unaware of everything else that's going on around you. So that awareness becomes, by definition, very difficult, because you are obsessing over just the one thing that you're afraid of. So maybe you're afraid of losing your job, right? Maybe you're afraid of losing your relationship. Maybe you're afraid of, financial troubles, whatever the case may be. Then you once you're focused on it, it's hard to think of other things. It keeps getting in there and in there and in there and in there and keeps disrupting you. So like it was a process for me. I had to work at it very, very hard, because it was a muscle it was a muscle I did not have.
Or
I didn't have it. I wasn't able to be aware.
You had the strong muscle to stay this way, right?
Maybe that's where you can look at it. That one was more powerful. I don't know, but I feel like I didn't have that. I had the desire, but I didn't have the ability to be aware, right, of it when it was coming on. So how did I develop it? Well, I kept trying and failing for a long time. And eventually we did enough work together where I was able to heal from enough trauma that I was able to come down from bring my general level of of anxiety down over time.
Yeah, but then my question was, so being aware, like,
Mhm.
so what exactly specific thing that you did, like being aware, it's like it's inside your head,
Mhm.
being aware.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm being aware, but so you tell yourself, okay, I'm aware, right? Well, maybe can how did you check that if you are aware or not aware? Um, Otherwise, you check, right? You check with yourself. I'm aware or not aware.
Mhm.
That's the start, and
Mhm.
then if you're not aware, you switch to aware. So how were you able to tell what's the tools that you were using
Um,
to check if you are aware or not aware?
um, I, I just use a tremendous amount of effort to be self-aware
Okay, so
of
what's
of what I am. That in itself can create anxiety, right? But I was always that way,
so
and I was
so
able to.
example, I'm just trying to um, make it more simple what aware is, because aware is such a abstract word.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm some people say I'm aware, and they're actually not aware enough.
Mhm.
You
They're aware.
grow
They're
so
aware of some things, but not necessarily
yeah,
the key
and
thing.
then
That's absolutely that happens all the time with
right.
people. Yeah.
So being aware, like
Mhm.
how did you, how were you, what were you doing? I'm going to be aware. I'm going to be aware. I'm going to be aware. I am aware. That's what you did. Just tell yourself you're
No,
aware.
not telling
Yeah.
myself.
So what did you do to be aware? What little things you did to,
um, the the key came in like what you were saying.
mm-hmm,
We've talked about this on this channel. Is me being aware of while during my workday
mm-hmm,
of my perfectionism.
okay,
So I was afraid to put anything out there
mm-hmm,
online, an
mm-hmm,
image like the thumbnail for this video, for example,
mm-hmm,
right? I make those.
mm-hmm,
So I was afraid to put one out there that wasn't, quote unquote, perfect,
mm-hmm,
right? So because I was afraid of people judging my work,
mm-hmm,
because that's the trauma that I went through was being judged,
mm-hmm,
right? And that's a big part of it. And so um, me being always afraid that someone may judge my work meant that I needed to do perfect work.
mm-hmm,
So that kept me in a state of anxiety
mm-hmm,
through the day.
mm-hmm,
And because I was in that state already, so it's a not a intense level of anxiety, it's a
mm-hmm,
low level anxiety
mm-hmm,
that I wasn't even aware of to begin with at all as an issue
mm-hmm,
until you said that was how I needed to heal, was to let go of perfectionism.
mm-hmm.
I never realized the connection between perfectionism and feeling sick, because I would feel sick as a result of my anxiety and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that connection though
Mm-hmm.
until you did the readings for me and were able to make that connection for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we did the subconscious shift work,
Mm-hmm.
it allowed me to finally let go of perfectionism. Because I couldn't just do the shift work like I let go of perfectionism. It wasn't so easy. It was there was different ones, and we had to come from different angles because it can be a very complicated thing, much more complicated than people may necessarily realize. But once I was able to let go of that,
Mm-hmm.
and it took a lot of work, that gave me space so that I would actually sit down to work at the computer here, and I would sit down and work at the computer, and I would actually not be anxious. And that was the first time that I can remember in my life not being anxious. So when that happened,
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of the difference.
So
Then I like, oh my God, this feels different. I can do things in a more relaxed way. I'm not on the edge of my seat, but it's not like a full awareness right away. It takes time, but I was able over time, even then I would still fail sometimes to notice, but I did notice after a while. I did notice that, you know what? I think I'm feeling a little grumpy, right? And the grumpiness came from fear, because under anger is fear, and the fear was coming from anxiety. So that dynamic, I was by finally finding calm, I had a reference point to notice the difference then between that and anxious.
Yeah.
So then I would think differently. So like that tunnel vision didn't happen, right? So I wasn't obsessing over my work and zeroed in on this work, like, oh, it's got to be just like this, and not thinking about anything else. My thinking would open up, my awareness would open up, and I would tell you about it at the end of the day when I was working. It's like, you know what? I can notice a difference now in my work. I used to think before that I had to do perfect work. Otherwise, like it's even coding, I would do coding as well, right? Computer coding. And I would build building a program, and it's got to work right? So it's very delicate work, very precise. So in a sense, it does kind of need to be perfect, but it actually doesn't, because you can have all kinds of suboptimal solutions. There's more than one way to do things in programming. It needs to be functional enough that it doesn't fail, right? But you can get there through a weird way. And so in the past, I was always worried about, doing it just this way. If some way would occur to me to do it, an approach would occur to me, and I would only focus in on that one approach. I'd have the tunnel vision, obsess about that one approach, and I'd have to get it to work. But when I finally let go of the perfectionism, I relaxed, and I was able to think about different approaches, different ways of thinking, different solutions. So that I would think of, instead of, excuse me, got a dry throat here. Instead of one way of solving the problem, I would come up with three, right? And then I would think about, well, I could do it this way. That might run into different problems. Oh, maybe I'll try it this way. That seems to work. How about another way? No, not so much. I'll go with option number 2, right? So I had more flexibility in my thinking, and that allowed me to get to solutions more quickly, finish the work and do a better job of it than I did in the past, where I would just obsess over the one. The first one occurred to me, oh, I better get this done fast, and start working on solution 1. Only that's the only one that occurred to me until I have it done, and then I'm like, well, maybe I should have the other one.
So I'm just going to back up a little bit.
So that awareness came.
Awareness, yeah.
At that point,
awareness came when you realize that the other state, I can be this in this state, not feeling anxious, and you have something to compare, being anxious and not anxious. Then you can start work on that. Before, you didn't have that. You said reference point.
Didn't have a reference point before.
And so, if lots of people probably that way, but they can have reference point because you didn't have reference point because work has to be this way, right? When I'm at the computer desk, I'm in this state, right? There's no other option being anxious. You didn't have that word anxious. This is my work style, right? So it wasn't wrong or right or anything, or maybe it was right for you. Back then, this supposed to be this way. I have to be this way when I'm working.
Of course, it's right. I was doing it, so it had to be automatically right.
Right. This is right, and you push it because it's right. Right. There's no other way to that. This is the best way to do it. This is the right way, and then you don't have a reference point, but you actually do come out of the work. And when you are relaxing, or maybe just having fun with friends, you're not in that state. You can compare if you like you went through subconscious shift and then finally relaxed at work, and then you have a reference point. But some people don't go through subconscious shift, so many subconscious shift. You can just compare when you're just relaxing in on the beach with the sun, and then at work. Um, if you say, of course it's different, I'm working, and then it's stressful, and how can it be the same? It's different, right? But the energy can be the same if you're feeling totally different and you're stressed and then you're tensed, then yes, you're carrying some anxious feelings, right? It's you. I'm not saying that you have to be 100% relaxed and falling asleep and just enjoying the sun and not thinking anything, like when you are laying on the beach. Do the same thing at work. I'm not saying that, but the energy that you are carrying, right? Relaxed and no anxious feeling, that energy you can have it at work.
I can testify to that. I mean,
You probably
people might be
didn't
saying,
agree
like you said,
3 years ago.
no, that's true. So like, people think that, you know, of course, like you said, of course you're relaxed. You're on the beach, right? You can't do that at work. Well, actually, that's not so much what is true as what you might think, because we're going from a different modes, right? We're going from, now it's okay for me to relax because I'm going to the beach. You're not just at work, you're switching your mindset. It's like you're saying, now I can't be relaxed because I'm going to work. That's a thought. That's a logical dependence that is not required. You don't need, in fact, I can tell you that I'm way more efficient. So this is what our anxiety tells us with work, is that we have to be anxious because that makes us more efficient. We've had to be scared or like driven by the stress to be more efficient. That's not true. There's a healthy level of stress
pressure
of like you said, just, oh, I'm totally relaxed at work. I don't need to work. I'll click once an hour on the button. No, not like that. What I mean is, there's
motivation, right?
Yeah,
Stress
you need some motivation, but you can provide that internally. You can provide your own motivation because you can be motivated by the desire to do good work, to be proud of your work, right? To be proud of your work, you want to do good work and do it efficiently. So that's all that you really need for that healthy motivational stress, right? So everything else beyond that is that we decide that, like I said, you're switching modes from the beach mode into work mode. Not all of the mindset has to come in the same mindset that you're used to doing for going into work. You can go to work and be more, and that's what I found, way more efficient, because like I said, like I was obsessing over one solution to building a program. I'll go about doing that, and I'd find down the road it doesn't work, right? Because I was too obsessed about just doing that one. Whereas if I spent more time thinking about the options and having more general awareness, and not tunnel visioning and obsessing, then I would find the right solution before I even started and just spend my time there instead of fixing the wrong solution that I went down in the first place, right? So you can be way more efficient by not being anxious. So you do not have to be. Your productivity is not related to your anxiety. I mean, is not doesn't go up by being anxious. It goes down.
Yeah. Lots of people think the opposite.
Yeah,
right.
They think that, and I told myself that.
Yeah, like this pressure. I need this pressure. I need this stress that push me forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's actually pushing you down.
Yeah, it
Because
is.
like you've done this, like your body is all tensed up,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then you didn't even notice that your body is tensed up the whole time,
Mhm.
right? And until you force yourself to relax, and then that's something that you can use self-discipline to do once in a while, like every hour or something. Just breathe and relax, and then remind your body to be relaxed,
Mhm.
right? So that's something that you can do. But otherwise you're not even aware that your body is tensed, and then your body is tensed, and then your body and then brain, or the signal and the chemical, whatever, it's not working, not flowing functionally, right? So you're not thinking clearly. You think you are working so hard, but actually you're not thinking
You are
clearly.
spending a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So we think we're working hard
Because
because
yeah.
it's hard. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be hard
Mhm.
to get the same results or
Mhm.
better results.
Mhm.
You sure do a good day's work, right?
Mhm.
But you'll feel great about it at the end of it if you're doing it while you're relaxed.
Yeah.
While
So
you're
if
while
you're
you're
like this,
yeah.
it's like you're carrying a 100 pounds weight
Mhm.
and doing the work. Of course, you're gonna get tired,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's maybe you're not carrying a 100 pound weight, but if you tensed up, you're doing the same
Mhm.
workout
Mhm.
while you're doing some logical thinking or whatever uh, physical work, right? You are using extra
Mhm.
energy, and
Mhm.
then yeah, of course, brain's gonna get tired
So
and
let's
not thinking.
let's recap here. So you're saying that awareness, can you be aware?
Mm-hmm.
Like I described how I became aware,
Mm-hmm.
but like, and you're saying not everybody's going to go through that same path. Some people, their reference point is going to be relaxed at the beach or enjoying time with friends, right? So if you think about it carefully, there's what you're saying, I believe, is that there is, it's not just the fact that you're at work or you're at play.
Mm-hmm.
It's the decisions that you feel are necessary for you to be in work mode. So you're making
Mhm.
decisions, is what we're saying,
Mm-hmm.
that you necessarily need to be anxious to be efficient
Mm-hmm.
at work, because you do need to be efficient most most jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to be, if you're not efficient, you are there may be consequences to that, your job performance and all assessment, all that kind of stuff. So you want to stay in that place, but to be in that place long term requires you to be efficient and effective and to consider options. So you want to not be anxious, because anxious mind makes that impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually doing yourself a disservice
Mm-hmm.
and making yourself less efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And you're having to work so much harder all day long by being anxious, and you're setting yourself up for problems, all kinds of problems.
Yeah, like a
Does
boss.
that sum it up, what you're saying? And
Yeah, and
so
then
you
like
compare
a
those
boss, he can be so angry, and I have to unless I do the good work, right? Oh, I'm not meeting the deadline, right? Feeling that and being anxious, just simply being anxious about boss getting mad or not meeting a deadline, just being anxious about that. Does it help? Does it help you thinking about boss gonna be angry? Does it gonna make you more productive? It doesn't, right? Does it help you? No, it doesn't. And so what I do is, yes, I get anxious feeling here and there, and I can feel it pretty much right away because I've been practicing. and then okay, I'm feeling this heavy energy, and um, I can tell it's here, right? And then, do I want this? Do I want this feeling? Is it helping me? No, of course not. Okay, is it helping me to do a good work, having a good session, or having a fun day? And I ask myself, like Scott was saying, you have to be honest with yourself too, right? Yes, you have to be honest. Is it helping me or not? And then if you are honest, really, really honest, the answer should be no, right? And then if it's no, you can let go and then focus on just doing your work instead of worrying about, because boss is gonna be mad and you are already tensed. Let go and just focus on the work, right? And then you can be more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Scott's got a bunch of great comments here. From the beginning of the show, we were talking about things going on in the world. He said he had to quit watching the news. We totally agree with that. You know, just having some minimal awareness somehow. I just scan headlines and just only look at things that are the most important, just tiny little peaks here and there. The ones that affect me directly, the rest, right, forget about it.
yeah, we covered that.
Oh, okay, yeah, we did, okay. And then, yeah, you're just agreeing that, you know, present moment's the only thing that exists here, absolutely. Yeah, the anxiety can keep you from thinking things through properly. Absolutely, that's exactly what. I couldn't agree with you more on that, because you just can't think of the options. You're going to obsess over the one thing. So it blinds you, makes you less effective.
Yeah. So we got the first step, being aware, and then use self-discipline immediately every time, and every time. So this, I kind of questioned you, like,
Yeah.
what do you mean being aware? Because lots of people don't, they might think they're aware and they're not.
Well, that's the
right?
funny thing. Yeah, and I totally sympathize with people. I went through different stages of healing the anxiety, and I thought many times that, okay, I've got it healed now, when really there was just another level where it was sneaking in there through the back door somehow, like we talked about a little bit earlier. Anxiety can have different levels to it, so it's a process, and my heart goes out to people that are in that state. It can really help to have someone help you with the subconscious shift work. And if that does interest you, you can just schedule a breakthrough session with us. Just come to our website, right? And we can talk to you about how that works. But what we can share with you for today is sort of, you know, daily practice things, right? That you can do. So yes, it can be multi-level. I mean, what you want to be able to do is that, I lost the spot here. Oh yeah, you don't want, like, having that self-discipline. So you can't find an excuse to put off centering yourself and relaxing, because that's what anxiety will say. Well, you can't center yourself and relax because you need to be efficient at work. That's what we're talking about. You can't. There's all kinds of things that your mind can come up with that tries to sabotage your ability to get into a centered place and a more efficient place to do your work, or whatever else it is, the activity you're engaged in. You're talking with somebody where you've had a tense past, right? There's history there, and you're anxious because it could go south again, that conversation, right? Well, you're making an excuse for yourself, if you're going to stay in that place, to be anxious so that you're ready for whatever could happen, right? That person could say something mean again, right? Whatever the case may be. But you can't make that excuse for yourself, or else you're not going to receive that conversation with that person in a way that leads to a positive outcome. If you're anxious, you're sabotaging the conversation. That's just the truth of it. No matter if the other person, maybe they're the one who did the thing that was wrong in the past. They were the one who committed the transgression in some way, said something mean, whatever the case may be. And so you're anxious. It may happen again, but you want to keep the relationship, repair the relationship somehow. If you're anxious, you're undermining your ability to keep that relationship, to build that relationship. You're already sabotaging it. And if you're making the excuse you need to be that way to protect yourself, then that is sabotage. You're self-sabotaging. So you need the discipline to center yourself. It takes discipline to do this. And so you need to say no excuses, like going to work. No excuses. You can take some of the beach with you to your workplace. That decision that it's okay to be relaxed can come with you, or not just totally laid out relaxed, but like to not be anxious, right? That you don't need to be anxious to be effective at work. It's actually counterproductive. So you don't need to choose to be that way. So you can bring that little bit of the beach with you, right?
So self-discipline, you mean this practice, choosing to relax, choosing not to be anxious, right? So I'm gonna relax, and that indication being anxious, because some people are not like you are not knowing when you're anxious or not, right? One indication is your body is tensed, right? Or you're breathing shallow, right? And then maybe you're sweating, or even if it's not hot, right? Those the body signal, you can check once in a while, or maybe every hour. You check, my body is tensed. Am I breathing shallow? Am I sweating? My eyes like this, right? You can check yourself. Your body is telling you all the time, right? And then that helps you be aware if you don't know where to start, right? And then use self-discipline and check every once in a while. And then when you feel the tension, relax, right?
So that's one of the exercises that we had in mind exactly.
Okay.
Is to be aware of muscle tension. Like you said, you can set certain times of the day. If it has to be only at your coffee break and lunch, that's maybe that's what it has to be. But it's much better if you can do it a little more often throughout the day, and just take the moment, just for a moment, just to see if you're holding extra tension in your body that you don't need. Right, like you said, the shallow breathing or anything like that. If you're holding the tension in your shoulders, right, you're holding them up there, holding tension in your legs, whatever the case may be. And this was a big exercise that helped me for a long time ago as well, to become more aware of, and that can help you with the awareness, right? Like you said, is if you're tense, then you're definitely anxious and you want to be able to let go with it. And I'll just share another exercise here that goes kind of along with it, is that a really great way is to release it, is to intentionally engage it all the way. So you can do it's a yoga thing where you breathe in, and as you're breathing in, you tense every muscle that you can in your whole body, your hands, your arms, your chest, your stomach, your legs, your feet, everything, your eyes, your mouth, every part of your whole body. You breathe in and you just hold it for a few moments, and then you breathe it out and you relax everything. You just let it all drop and let it out, or you just breathe it out and just let your whole body just go ragdoll, right? As much as you can. And you can, if you need to, you can repeat that a couple of times, right? That's a great exercise, right?
Then you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
You tensed and relaxed, right?
Yeah.
So helps you be aware what relaxed position or relaxed state is and what's tensed state is. And then it helps you to be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're time check here. We'll keep try to get the last bits in here. Maybe we'll come back to them in another episode if we need to expand on them a bit more. But just to mention quickly here, anxiety lies to you. Your fear lies to you. It says you can only be safe. Like you can only be effective at work. You can only be safe at work, and if you're anxious, that's a lie. You don't, like we were saying earlier, you don't get more done when you're anxious, and you exhaust yourself. So if you like the idea that you can be only safe if you're anxious, the idea there is you have to have your guard up, right? Well, that's actually exhausts you because it takes so much energy to do that. And then, days, weeks, months, years later, when there actually is a reason to have your guard up, you've been keeping your guard up for years in anticipation of a possible problem. And when it finally arrives, how are you going to be? You're going to be exhausted, right? Even just holding it all day long, that stress, by the end of the day, you're going to be exhausted, right? So if there is a problem that finally shows up on your lap, then you are exhausted and you can't handle it properly. And you can be immobilized by the fear because you've been working on the fear so much your whole life, that whole day. So anxiety and safety are actually at odds with each other. The more anxious you are, the less safe you are. And the less capable you are of dealing with the situation, of thinking of options of how to deal with an emergency when it comes up, and keeping your head and staying centered and making the right choices, because it's so much about making good choices. All of life is like that, right? So and because it's using so much of your energy, that anxiety creates illness, right? It's so closely tied to illness. You don't want it, right? I don't know if we can have the time today to demonstrate, like I was thinking about, but box breathing, I'll just mention that one as another exercise that you can do. It's so simple. Do you want to walk through it to explain it?
Yeah, sure. It's box breathing. You inhale, count 4, right? Slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, and inhale and pause. Hold your breath. Count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. Just count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and pause. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you just repeat.
So you're holding it out at that last one, the fourth one. For 4.
Inhale,
No air
4, hold 4, exhale 4, and hold again 4.
Yeah.
Right. So 4, 4, 4, 4.
Yeah.
That's the box breathing, and it's really good for anxiety.
We have a video that explains it and shows you how to do it on our YouTube channel if you want to check that out. It's just so you know, it's used by soldiers in battle. They teach them that. So if you're in the middle of a firefight, actually shooting, that kind of stuff, they're doing the box breathing while they're doing that. So you can do this in any situation. There isn't a situation. If they can do it, then
they can do it, and they
anybody can do it anytime.
They use it because that's effective.
Yeah,
right?
It helps keep you centered. It helps you from going into that tunnel vision, that fear overwhelming you kind of thing, and freezing, right? Because that's what you can do if it goes too far, is you can freeze, right? So it keeps you centered and able to take action effectively in the moment. So it's a great one for dealing with anxiety. You can do this anytime, right? And the rate at which you do it doesn't matter if it's a faster 4 or a slower 4. You want to tend towards a slower one, and as you train yourself on how to do it, kind of push towards the slower, but there's no magic pace there. And then there's another one, 4-7-8. I didn't know about box breathing back in the day. I use 4-7-8 to deal with anxiety. It's great. It's very similar. You're just breathing in for 4, right? Holding for 7, and then breathing out for an 8 count, and then you're breathing right back in again. You don't pause with this one. That's one of the differences.
But exhaling is longer, so
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of
Yeah, I think it's kind of like
Yeah.
a pause, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of takes the place of it.
Yeah.
So we had possibly other exercises. I think maybe we probably want to skip those to another time.
but those are good, right?
Yeah.
So being aware by releasing the tension from your body,
Mm-hmm.
and then being aware and then using exercise, breathing exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You can start with those ones just throughout the day. Catch yourself, check yourself, see if you are anxious, you're not relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if you're not relaxed, do those exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and then make a new habit of staying calm, relaxed instead of tense and anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And that can help, and you can finally stay calm throughout the day
Mm-hmm.
instead of being anxious all day long, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is another one, is like physical exercise and meditation. I think I'll slip these in here really quick. Here, just quick mention. Not going to go into details, but just getting out there and moving your body does so much. Meditation, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like Scott mentioned earlier, quit the news. So you're right on it, Scott. There, it's all prepped, and there you were.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here, and yes. So if you're still having troubles with this stuff, if you try these practices and they're not enough for you, like we're kind of mentioning through the show, that can indicate that there's strong, like Satomi said, like doing these habits is a way of creating subconscious change.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is. There's a lot of different ways to create subconscious change. But if you're still running into something that's not allowing you to move forward, then just schedule a breakthrough session with us, and we'll help you understand what's going on, because it can be subconscious programs that are pretty strong. Maybe it's trauma, something like that you went through.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a lot of different things that's preventing you from getting there, and we can offer you options to work through that. Our Sakuso program is a unique and very powerful approach for dealing with that. Satomi will do readings. There's the Psych K, and there's practices that go along with it that help you make changes in your life. It's how I was able to get through all of my stuff and all of our clients, right? It's a great way to go. Or you can just schedule a reading with Satomi. Just go to our website as well. That can just give you the insight that you need in order to, and then work on your own, right? That's another way to go about it. And other than that, we'll see you next week right here on Aether at 4 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for stopping by. We love you guys.
Thank
Bless you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.